Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. Good stuff. Hey, we're around the corner. First weekend's coming up here real quick. The down in Branson, Shamrock Shootout.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff going on down there. First weekend that will be is in April. Spring Showdown. Got some good stuff going on there. Looking forward to it. Baseball's just around the corner.
Yeah, it seems like it's been starting. You know, the weather's been nice, so
Yeah.
folks have been that had some scheduled indoor time are canceling and getting outside for some outdoor practices. So
Today's supposed to be in the 70s.
I tell you what, I'm suffering. When the dogwoods start to bloom, man, it gets me. My allergies are on another level right now, and it took a lot for me to get up this morning.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I had to actually ask for a warm washcloth to open my eyeballs.
Oh,
they had
that's
so
tough.
much like almost like hay fever in my eyes. It was shut. So, as much as I love being outside, and this is my PSA real quick for folks. It's sunny. Can you please wear your sunscreen? I only say that because I've had another 3 spots biopsy on me for potential skin cancer stuff. So as much as we are outside, please take care of your skin.
There you go. That's PSA right in the middle of our Game 7 baseball.
Well, whatever. I mean, how much is Game 7 on the baseball field?
Yeah.
So, you know, we're always out there. They're always every single
Safety.
weekend.
Good stuff, man.
It's part of it. I'm sure Dave wear sunscreen.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I'm not speaking for them.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I don't smell them lathered in sunscreen. SPF 1000.
My wife probably gets on me a little bit more because I don't wear a lot of sunscreen. So no, I don't. So there you go.
Yeah, that's why every time we go out to the games, I'm like, do you have tent? Can I wear my giant hat? Like, it's dark. All right, perfect. We got a night game.
It gets in the dog days, man. It's tough. And that's the thing, you get out in the clouds, people go, oh, you're okay. And that's when you get sunburned. You're like, what happened?
I get sunburned in March.
Yeah.
When we were down in Branson a few years ago, it was very nice weather. It was that late March, early April, or whatever it was, down there in Branson for my 14 with the same group I have now. And I didn't wear sunscreen thinking, well, it's just a March day or whatever it was. I came back and my face was cherried and arms were, already had my farmer's tan.
Yeah, there you go.
That was a Game 7 event. The same one that your guys they're doing right now.
Oh, there you go. It's coming up.
Yeah,
it's coming up this weekend. If I'm not mistaken.
See how we tied that back together?
I like it.
I feel like I could
first
be a
tournament.
news anchor now.
Game 7 baseball. I know Tennessee's already started. There's a lot going on. Great stuff. Game7Baseball.com. We're looking forward to a good spring and summer. Also, we have the baseball moms coming up. Drew, what's that date?
Next Monday.
It's the 20th. No, not the 20th.
18th?
Yeah, it's the 18th. Yes. We'll have the first episode coming back for the Moms Baseball Talk. Baseball Moms, I should say. Tiffany DeManuel, Jennifer Mayberry coming to you from the studio next Monday. We're going to be doing a show once a month. We're probably going to be talking to them throughout the season, from places unknown or known around the ballpark. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that. So make sure you're here, subscribe. We got some great stuff coming up. Next week, we're going to be in Springfield. First live stream of the year. Going to Willard. They got Camden coming to their house, Camdenton. Then at Nick's on Thursday. We're going to preview that a little bit, Mitch and I, at the end of this. So hang in for that. But first, around the corner is the G.A.C. Game of the Week. Our first one starts off with the district championship game from last year, St. Charles West versus Winfield. Well, it's at St. Charles West. Winfield's going to St. Charles West. Going to be a good game. G.A.C. North. It's, I think, going to be a battle. I got my bold predictions. Let's start with the bottom four. Orchard Farm at number 6. New coach. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. They got some kids. We didn't get a chance to talk to the new coach this year, so I don't know. Just getting a feel for them. It's a tough division, and Orchard Farm is kind of on that smaller end of the spectrum as far as Class 4 is concerned. They play good baseball. It's not an easy gimme game or anything like that, and they've got a few guys over there, but St. Charles, the Pirates, Coach Bickle, I got them at number 5. I think they could, if they can put together enough pitching, I think they could, move up in that. It's going to be interesting to see how they come back. They lost a couple of their big dudes last year.
A couple big bats.
Yes. And so that'll be interesting how they, with Maddox Meyer. Mm-hmm. Moving on, and I'm trying to remember the other young man's name. I know it is. Hang on. I got it written in here.
Well, Maddox is the one I got to see a lot, and so I know his work ethic, allowed him to get to the level of college ball that he's at now. But
Toby Goodwin was the other one. Toby Goodwin, Maddox Meyer moving on. But they got 4 returning seniors in Carter Dorlock, Zach Williamson are 2 of those that I think are going to provide. Mason Hickerson, and as a 2025, Caden Hammer.
What a name.
I know, right?
What a name.
That's a good baseball name.
It doesn't matter if you
Just
hit or if you pitch, right? So if you know what I mean? If you're hitter, obviously you got that. And if you're, a pitcher, hopefully he's got a good curveball.
So I think St. Charles can make some noise in this conference, but it'll be they're a Class 5 school, but it'll be interesting to see how those kids and the pitching. I think pitching at this level, especially in this conference, key because you don't have a lot of depth.
Yep.
And that's what's problematic, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think for like these schools that are in the bottom half, like you talk about Orchard Farm and St. Charles, how are they going to try to match up with their groups? You notice if you're going against the ace of St. Charles West, you got a guy that has it, right? And so do you want to pitch your ace in that game, or do you want to pitch him, day 2? Because in the G.A.Cs, they play the back-to-back.
Right.
And so, do you want to try to manipulate your rosters that way to try to play spoiler? Because that's what I think Orchard Farm and St. Charles are going to do this year in that conference, is try to play spoiler to all these other teams, especially late in the season. Those matchups can be tricky. So, and health,
right,
and Orchard Farm can't lose a couple kids, like maybe some of the bigger schools can.
Right.
They might be able to lose a young man and for a couple of weeks and still survive the season, where some of these smaller schools cannot.
No, they can't, and that becomes very difficult, with for Orchard Farm in that respect. They've got a couple kids coming back, and this is what's tough. Sometimes in these smaller schools, you don't know. 2025 grad Matt Lambeck, who slashed .405, 500, .432 with 9 runs and 14 RBIs. Brady Rosenberg is a 2026 for Orchard Farm, and the senior Blake, I believe it's pronounced Jackal. Jakul, had 7 starts, 29.7 innings pitched in his junior season. So you've got a couple of guys there. It'll be interesting to see what Orchard Farm brings to the table there, and see how they perform in this G.A.C. North. But then you have those two teams, Winfield, who is the return. They're defending the title.
The conference title, correct?
Conference title. There's 3 Warrior teams in here: Winfield, St. Charles West, and Warrenton. Warrenton, we got a chance to talk to Coach Burley. I thought that was great. Enjoyed that conversation. They're always scrappy, dude. They just they just get guys, and they play hard. I loved Coach Burley's attitude toward it, and he gets those kids ready to play.
Yeah, and it ties to the GACs in general, right? So I have young men that are at all these schools that have come through the facility, whether it's for the club or working out, just because of our locations, and I get to see a lot of these athletes come through, and Winfield's got some guys. I got a couple players on my team that are at Warrenton, and I'm like, okay, I know what he brings to the table, and you have Ben Peth, who's returning. That's a young man that logs a lot of innings for Warrenton over the last few years. They got a really nice catcher there. That's a junior. So again, the depth is going to matter for them. And did they add enough young players that are sophomores to help that roster? And
that's it. That is because Ben Peth, we talked about him. And this is where it's great to go back, folks. You can check out the coaches spotlights or the coaches previews and go and check those out. We've got this information is all on our website. I wrote out some things. I wrote out a preview for each one of these conferences. That's what we're going on right here. And some great information if you want to keep up. We work very hard to try and bring as much information about the conference as possible. And it's fun to cover this because I think the G.A.C. North is going to be tough. I think it's going to be a grind for all these teams because Warrenton is bringing back. Ben Peth is no joke. He's first team all conference and second team all district. He also hit 329, slashed 440 and 415 runs scored and 18 RBIs. So, I mean, this is a kid that can get it done on the mound. And
I asked him. So I personally had a chance to work with Ben on the hitting side going into last season. I haven't worked with him this year. He's confident in what his approach. So, which is good for me, that we got to that point. But he wanted to focus on hitting, and I said, man, something's going to change, right? Either how much you're working on your pitching, how much you're going to hitting, and then it paid off for him to be a big part of that offense last year. So again, going back to, can you repeat this? Right. I do think the days of hitting, 3/4 of the team or your top 5 or 6 hitting 350 plus, I don't think that's a high school batting lineup anymore. I feel like when I was in high school, we had that, but we took advantage of kids throwing 78 to 81, because velocity was 85 back then. There's kids in this conference that are throwing 85 and you're a number 3 starter, right? So I do think it's tough to hit in the GACs. So these kids that are hitting 400, can they repeat that with an on-base percentage of 500? I mean, come on. Yeah. You're getting on, 1 out of 2 at bats. And so that's a pretty good clip. Yeah. That means you're creating havoc, creating trouble, allowing guys to have 18 to 25 RBIs, that are hitting in the 5-6 spot. So I'm excited to see if these kids can repeat.
Winfield, St. Charles West, and North Point. I think these 3 teams are Winfield, they've got a lot of their kids back. But they're pitching. Brady Creech is back. He was 5-1 with a 2.63 ERA. Colin Morse, who was 4-1 with a 4.12 ERA, both back. I think the depth in pitching is going to be the key for this. After those 2 guys, after we talked with a little bit with Brady Creech, we didn't get a chance to talk with Coach Stokes. Just didn't quite get the scheduling. Coach Stokes, I appreciate. He reached out a couple times. We just couldn't do it before the season. But hopefully we'll get a chance to talk. I'd love to get him on the phone and talk with him just a little bit about the team and see what's going on, especially before the game we got coming up. It's March 26th, I believe it is. Correct, Drew?
Yep.
Nope. Yes. Yep. Yeah, March 26th is our first G.A.C. game of the week. It'll be at St. Charles West. Throw up that deal there so people can see that. That's our first game of the week. Winfield, St. Charles West. I think these are 2 teams that are going to be pushing for that title. The Warriors, they lost by 1 run in the district title game. So this game will mean something. You got 2023 Alexander Kinney and Brady Creech. Kinney slash 365, 455, 58. 4 doubles, 2 home runs, and 15 RBI. And Creech, 319, 424, 417, 5 doubles, 1 triple, scoring 20 runs. Those two are going to be a handful. You got Caden Palmer, Logan Havocan, Warren Conrad, Colin Morse. This team is loaded offensively. I think their key is who's going to be behind those 2 starters.
Again, it's every single week we have a conversation on this show, no matter if it's at 10U all the way up to the high school levels. It's always been about depth. I'm just really excited about this first game.
Yes.
The G.A.C. game of the week.
Because St. Charles West, offensively, man, that's a juggernaut.
I think for me, what I'm interested in is seeing how the coaches handle the pitching staff. Are these kids we both know who's starting that first game of conference play. At least I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
And so, as these 2 kids go out there, are they going to be able to throw 85 pitches? Are they going to limit the pitching? Are they going to limit to 50? What's the weather going to be like?
Right.
I'm excited for the variables of the game because it could come down to a coach making a mistake on a decision, and I can't wait to see it. It's early,
and that's what I think. With we talked with Coach Allen from St. Charles West this season. Go check these out. There's good conversations, and offensively, you have Gramling, Quinn, Goring, or Gehring. I believe it's pronounced Gehring. All these kids coming back. Oh my goodness!
They're young too. Both.
Yeah.
They have sophomore. Again, being part of the G.A.Cs and seeing kids from Winfield and everything, they have young talent at the sophomore level. That are coming up that are going to get regular reps, or even at St. Charles St. Charles West, they had kids that were freshmen that were players for St. Charles West, and they're now sophomores. They have a year under their belt. Did they hit 220 or 230? Yes, they did. They're freshmen. Of course, they're going to. You expect the struggle.
But I think it's more to the point. I think the depth in the lineup. I think offensively. I mean, Noah Gramling. We talked about this. This kid hit 433, 524, 558. He scored 35 runs and drove in 24. 9 doubles, 2 triples. At the top of that lineup, in front of, he's getting on base. Quinn, Gehring. You also have who is going to Mizzou. He's a 2025, so he's got another year. He's a junior. Matt Box, 362, 470. And they've got some younger pieces. Offensively, I think both these teams, Winfield and St. Charles West, are back. I think how they're going to have to compete is on the pitching mound.
Yep.
And this goes back to what I believe about this, and this is why I think North Point's going to be at the top of the heap. I think their pitching depth is best in this conference.
Yes, and I being able to be a part of Hellman and watch Hellman for a few seasons, prior to North Point, and then his desires as a coach. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. I remember a game that we faced him at Timberland, and we spanked him pretty good. And his words to his team was very simple: just remember what it felt like to get beat like that. Right. And that's what his motivation was. He didn't yell at them about some of the mistakes they made because they were young. And now these kids are juniors and seniors. I guess juniors. They might have a few seniors over there.
Yeah, they do.
But
this year.
Yeah. And so it's just all those kids were freshmen and sophomores getting beat up by varsity athletes, juniors and seniors. And now it's their turn. And so I think some of these kids are going to be seasoned. They're going to have a few years under their belt of experiencing this. And so after we had that conversation a few weeks back, because, I think I went St. Charles West with, winning conference there the last time we had this conversation. And I think that hearing some of this stuff from North Point players, I'm flipping that coin and going over to North Point as
it's gonna
kind
be
of
tough.
My prediction too for first
place. So in the comments below, list out your your thoughts on who's going to win the conference. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to see it. I think that's, North Point, you're talking about Jack Cowling, Kevin Mangrum back on the mound. I think there's depth behind that offensively. You've got some guys that are going to be stepping up, back up. The Bridle brothers, Peyton and Braden, Alex Blair coming back. You have some young guys in Gonzalez, Brady Eisenbath, Stone Marion. I think this team has got depth. I think they're finally getting their footing under them. Coach Hellman, I think, has got those guys going in the right direction, and it'll be interesting to see. You also have seniors Braden Bechtel and Nick Herman. There's pitching depth on this team that I don't think the other teams have, and that it's not that they don't have good pitching, but it's the depth, and this is where it comes to fruition. And then you get into, especially when you have in the Class 4. Now, these guys are Class 5, but in the G.A.C., this is where it's at. And then you're going to go into – it'll be interesting to see what kind of run if North Point makes in districts as well.
Yeah. Again, just having the experience of watching these young men play, and what Hellman can bring to the table as a coach, I think he's going to motivate those kids. Again, coming back to depth, they're going to have it as one of the larger schools there that are in the conference, and it's just not depth of pitching; it's depth of good pitching. Right. So it's not just having 10 pitchers on the team; you have 10 pitchers that can pitch. And I don't know that there's anybody overwhelming. But they compete very hard, and I think that's the culture that North Point over the 3 years. That they have an identification of who they are. They know what type of team is going to be out there.
Then you got the Central, and ooh boy, I will tell you again. We did not get a chance to talk with Coach Siebert. Steve Siebert at Zumwalt North, but they've got a couple of dudes. Washington, I think, is going to be rebuilding, and but it'll be interesting after talking with Coach Goff, which we got him late into the studio, so that is coming up, right, Drew? That'll be out, I think, this week, correct? Oh yeah, Coach Goff already did go out. Yeah, we've already posted that one with Coach Goff, so that was a great conversation. Well, that's where I'm at, man.
There's a lot going on right now. Getting ready for these games to broadcast, and you're leaving to head down to.
But he's got some guys. He's rebuilding. I think they'll be fine. I think he's got that mentality. They play hard. They're going to play hard. They've got some guys coming back. We haven't heard. There is one player that we don't know about. Henry Vader is a pitcher, lefty, sophomore lefty, that transferred to Washington from Borgia, but we don't know if he's eligible or not. So I don't know. I can't speak to that. So we'll just have to wait and see what gives. And I haven't heard from Coach Goff if he has been cleared and eligible yet or not. So there you go. So that's a kind of a hidden one there. Zumwalt North, they've got a couple of big arms. Camden Lohman is a Mizzou commit with big upside, a high 80s fastball, looking to capitalize on his sophomore season. Bryce Creighton, 3-2 record. So Jackson Pullman, Joey Lindeman, who scored 13 runs, drove in 11 runs, returning from last year's squad. So there's some guys on this team. So it'll be interesting to see how Zumwalt North competes in the Central. It's a very tough conference. We don't know as much about these guys other than the fact that you got a Mizzou commit on the mound. So, I mean, that's impressive as it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, these are kids that were young. Looking at their rosters a few years ago, Zumwalt North was probably going to be, expected to finish close to last, in their last two spots or whatever. And now these kids have experience. And
right.
So these kids have been playing varsity baseball for 3+ years. again, when you're now seniors, a lot changes from when you're just this little kid walking into your freshman year of ball. You know, you're overwhelmed. Tryouts, the whole experience is tough. And so I think that Fort Zumwalt North could play that role of upsets. You know what I mean? They can go out there and again, how do you manage your pitching staff? You know, you're going to go up against the ace versus ace day one, or are you going to flip it and try to steal a game two?
Right.
You know, because it's going to be tough to beat some of these pitching staffs at the top of the G.A.C. Central.
There's going to be some very good pitching matchups in the G.A.C. Central this year. Washington still is going to be tough. Kaner Young, he threw 33 innings last year, was 3-2 with a 2.50 ERA for Washington. They got a big bat in that lineup, and Hayden Burns, who's going to Missouri State University in West Plains. 2025 grads, Ben Lossing and Mason Thies, I believe it is, along with Hunter Backemeyer, Ethan Rowe, all have a few innings. So there's some guys there. It's just going to be who steps up for Washington and what is he going to get out of them, because these guys threw a few innings. All of them didn't throw a lot of innings. So that's that experience, you know, that you're looking for in a pitching staff.
Yeah, I didn't see the scores of this weekend's games with jamborees going on for high schools.
I don't know. Some of them got them in, some of them didn't.
Yeah, but I know that they competed well. I think they had DeSmet and Timberland with them. I believe that they competed well from just talking with Coach there and talking to AJ Koenig with from DeSmet. So, that's two pretty talented teams and that are expected to do well in their conferences. So who knows? You know, again, it's the jamboree, so guys are pitching one inning. You know,
right.
It's the depth. So you got the guy that you're trying to get a look at that's, maybe your 6-7 guy, relief guy, and, gets lit up. That's the difference of a game going from, 2-1 to 8-1.
Right.
Just how you manage your jamborees. It's what spring training is.
Exactly. And then in the middle of this is East, Fort Zumwalt East and Holt. Zumwalt East, they've got their offensive firepower back. I mean, they're at the top of that, two seniors, Eric Williams, Jackson Carter, two very good baseball players, one phenomenal athlete in Jackson Carter. Going to UCM on both baseball and track scholarship. I think that's impressive as it is. So you have those dynamics in the fact that these two guys are still in the top of that lineup, and you have
So this area back here is basically production. They do a lot of the artwork back here. They do the production. So any of that stuff that comes in off of, we'll say, our fanware stores, stuff that comes in off the team stores, a lot of the coaches wear, a lot of the last minute, hey, we got to have it in the next 10 minutes stuff. That's all comes back here. This area is where all the day-to-day stuff that comes in really goes through. The retail store is its own little entity. This is where the real work is done.
There we go. I had to find what I was reading.
Oh, yeah. I was
There
just
you
like,
go.
I was going to say
That's all
something,
right.
but I like
That's
the
all
dead
right.
air for once.
A little dead air.
I was like,
Eric Williams is committed to Mississippi Valley State as well. But then Braden Weber going to McKendree. Braden Weber, people don't know a lot about this kid. Hit 365 slash 487, 492, 16 ribbies and 8 doubles. Part of that senior group. I think is going to be interesting. Ryan Cleathermos, Lonnie Land, the fourth. Two juniors that are going to be very important to that lineup. Brendan Pyle, of course, sensational freshman season, 364, 525, 06, 21 runs scored, 17 RBI, 9 doubles, and a triple. He's dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Offensively, boom. Pitching-wise, Carter Hollingsworth is coming back. But as we talked with Coach Hill, there's a lot of guys, a lot of arms they're looking at, but who's going to step up into that role behind him? Who's going to be the number 2? Where's the depth coming on that? And I think that's where East is going to be searching. And if they find the right guys and guys step up, they can be a very hard team to beat. But if they don't, that's where they're going to run into some trouble.
Yeah, I know I sound like this repeating thing here, but again, I've got a chance to coach against Coach Hill a few times as both high school and summer ball. There's going to be some kids that are sophomores that made this team. I follow them, so you check out the cool media pictures that they do, the media day stuff that's going around. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't know that kid made the team. He didn't say nothing to me last time I saw him. And I'm like, okay, that kid, I know what he brings to the table.
Right.
So is he going to be able to match Pyle's efforts? And
right.
Is he going to be a guy that can maybe hit 280 to low 300s for that group? Lonnie is like 6'5", something. He's a massive young man. And is he going to be a big piece of that lineup that's driving baseballs?
Right.
Those are kids that aren't necessarily on radars because they are talented at other sports. They have they're not on some of our rankings and things like that. And these are kids that are good players that aren't heard about.
Right.
We don't talk about them enough because they don't. Maybe they're not committed, or they don't have the sexy stats that you see, with hitting 4+ with 5 dingers or things like that. You don't see that, but they're good.
Yeah,
they're just good.
Yeah,
and last year they may have sat because there's guys that were in front of them were good.
Land played a little bit last year and did some good things for him, so he's got some experience there, and I think that's going to help.
He's a junior now, right? So he's
exactly.
a sophomore, which is young and immature in between the years, and now he's a little bit older.
I think, I talked with Coach Hill about this, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of repeat that, because Pyle can throw, he can pitch, he does pitch, but I think if you could use him in a closer role, because he's high 80s guy, playing that shortstop position, you got Eric Williams, and kind of repeat that role that you had with his name just dropped out of my brain when they made that state run.
Are you talking about the second baseman?
Shortstop. He was the shortstop there, and he's at McKendree right now pitching. He's oh my gosh.
I know who you're talking about.
Isn't that terrible? The older you get, folks, this is what happens. And the brain just goes.
There's a lot of athletes that you remember.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Everybody knows who I'm talking about, too, and that's terrible. I'm sorry about missing the young man's name. I'll get it here in just a minute. But
it's tough, though, to take a player out
and just put him in that closing role. But if you have that scenario, you've got guys that can go behind him. And if you can find those guys that get you to that, I mean, that can carry a long way.
It can. I can remember when Timberland did that with our 2 middle infielders a few years back. I guess this would have been 2 seasons ago. We were throwing our shortstop and second baseman to close out ball games. Because we had somebody that could play behind them that was efficient at the position, but we didn't have nobody that closed games. So it was the closer we had in place was worse than the guy we had replacing him at shortstop, second base. So. If that makes sense to everybody. It
does. Holt is another team that, has got pitching. They're bringing back. It'll be interesting. Dalton Hosack, lefty, that's just tough to hit. I mean, he is tough. When he's on and he's got that slider working.
Yeah, that slider. I thought he graduated. This is
back,
a senior?
This senior year. He is back, and you got that senior – you got that senior catcher behind the plate in
Lassiter.
Yeah, Chase Lassiter, who I think is fun to talk to. I love talking with Chase. He's quite the kid, and so you've got guys there. He's committed to Maryville, and Kyle Edgar. He had some arm trouble last year. We'll see how he's back pitching, but probably playing that shortstop role. You've got Ben Kolb, committed to St. Louis Community. coming back as well. Carson Horan, Kansas Wesleyan. You've got guys that are playing. Aiden Pettit, who was 3-1 with a 3.68 ERA as a sophomore, 6'5" lefty. They've got some guys, and I think Holt's going to be a tough team to beat in this conference.
Health. They need to be healthy. I think Kyle Edgar. When I started coaching at Timberland, I was a freshman coach, and at the time, believe it or not, Chase Lassiter and Kyle Edgar were on the freshman baseball team, as talented as they were. But that's how good Holt was at that particular time. This is before North Point opened, before they lost some of their kids to North Point's program. But I can remember Kyle Edgar's demeanor on the mound, and a bunch of our guys have played against him for a long time, and they're like, man, that kid gets me. He's got a great off-speed pitch, and he sets it up perfect. I mean, and that's from the battery between Chase and Kyle. So I enjoyed watching them, and I'm wanting to get a chance to see that again, to see how Kyle can come back from last year's arm issues. Can he handle shortstop and pitching? Is he going to be a starting pitcher? Is he going to do what Powell does? Is he going to be their closer? Because can you replace him at the shortstop position, assuming that he's playing that? He played left field. The last time I was at Timberland, he was playing left field and made 2 great plays running into the wall. So it'll be interesting to see what Perkle does with the lineup there. And
we had a great conversation, Coach Perkle. We had him for the first time come into the studio. We had a great conversation with him, talking to him about his Holt team. I mean, he's a Holt guy, and he played at Holt. I love those guys that come back and are part of that, and they were there. And I think that tradition, they understand what they're working to. They've got goals, and they're working towards those goals. And working to put that program in that place where they understand what that tradition is there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great. And so I think they're going to be a tough team to beat this year. I think they're going to be right in that mix with Liberty and Zumwalt South. Zumwalt South and Liberty, these two teams are separators. If Liberty North, Liberty North, Liberty Wentzville, if they can stay healthy, this team can make a splash. They've got depth at pitching. They've got some big
depth
bats
everywhere.
Yeah, they do. They have depth everywhere. And the tough thing is you have to remember they're a Class 6 school. So they're going to go up into that district, and they were in that district with Francis Howell. And so can they compete at that level? I don't know yet. But this is a very good baseball team.
Yeah, I with what South, for example, South's returning in Liberty, I'm looking at these two and I'm going, man, I know families that I grew up playing with and know very personally in both of these programs, and the things that they discuss, between the lines, and I'm like, man, that's a rivalry now. Oh yeah, Liberty is not that old of a program, and they got some guys and they know it, and so does South. And so that's, again, another one of those games that are huge, and Liberty's in my backyard, both where I live and then for the facility. So I see a lot of these young men working, and they work.
Listen, Ty Holman, if he's back healthy and strong that way, and then Braden Snurbush, I mean, that's a 1-2 on a mound that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you have Alex Young, who's going to Central Methodist. This kid had a .85 ERA. He was 6-3 last year, 49 and 30 innings. So those three guys, the depth there, and then you got other guys coming behind them. I think Coach Reeder's got his finger on the pulse of that team pretty good.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be I think it's going to be very interesting. Jake Greer, the sophomore. Big pop in his bat. Actually, he's a junior, 2025. Big pop in his bat. It'll be, you got guys coming back, Lincoln Roquette, Noah Kuhner, Ethan Griffith, Bryce Haynes. There's going to be guys all over that field that can play ball. I think Coach Reeder, if they stay healthy, that team is going to be very difficult to beat.
Yeah, they have depth. I mean, I again, the catching spot, they got guys playing outfield because they have a luxury of having 4 guys that are behind the dish that could start in some of these programs. And it's like, to have a luxury like that, to miss a guy, like if a guy goes down for a couple days or a couple games because of an injury or soreness or whatever, you got a guy that can fill that role and hit. It's just, what are these guys going to do? It's hard to make these teams, so you should feel good about making one of these rosters.
Right.
And then how do you manage the time? Because some of these guys are real dudes, and you're a good player. Next year will be your time to shine. Right. It's just, that's what it is. You have freshmen, or you have seniors and juniors, and that senior is going to get the playing time. Typically, everywhere you go, that it's like that, especially when you're that good. Like if you're comparable, that senior's going to get his reps. He's got 3 years of service on you. So I like Liberty's depth in this conference, and at all positions. I know that if they lose, some of their bigger bats, it's going to have to be which sophomore or young junior that didn't have a lot of playing time last year is going to step up. But they're too deep at every position, it feels, at minimum. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is the matchup, and then Fort Zumwalt South. This is our week 3. Yes, week 3 matchup in the G.A.C. just before the Classic. I think it's April 9th, if I'm correct in that, Drew. Our crack engineer over there. Yep, he's nodding his head yes.
Yes, it is.
April 9th. We got Liberty at Fort Zumwalt South. I think it's going to be a dynamic game. Fort Zumwalt South, folks, is still loaded. They finished in 3rd place last year in the Final Four in Class 5. And I think they've got a run in them again. I mean, you've got Hankey, Carter back on the mound, 1-2 punch, Fullhorst, Reynolds, Tankersley, Adkins, Mendel, Sam Ailes or Alice. Don't know exactly how that's pronounced, but this team is loaded. 7 of the 8 players they got returning hit over 300. All 8 had double-digit RBIs and runs scored. I mean, that is...
They take advantage of teams they're supposed to take advantage of. That's how I feel about Fort Zumwalt South.
As good, and Carter Cox is as good as it comes. Going to NIU, I think he's going to be better this year. I think we had a great conversation with Carter, player spotlight. I think he's more mature. I think he knows what he wants to do on the mound. I think he's learning how to pitch better. And if you got that kid in Hankey, wow.
Yeah, throwing to Mendel. Mendel's going to NIU.
That's correct. That's where Cox is going. They got both those guys going to NIU.
Yep. Yeah. It's the battery's been there for the last couple of years for these guys, and it's just, again, growth. And we got a chance to see him out at Carshield pitch in the G.A.C. Classic event last year. That was the first time I got to see him play, and I was like, man, wow. And then I started paying attention because I grew up with Diana Reynolds, which is Reynolds' mom, and she had coached baseball, and a lot of these kids for a long time she had coached. So I connected with her and just asking about these particular players, and she's like, some of these kids are underrated, and again, you don't see it because they had a good senior class.
The second, April 2nd, excuse me. So that's the second week. And then the third week, April 9th, is Francis Howell Central, Timberland. There we go. Yes, that's correct. So we went North, Central, South.
Yep.
We did that. So it's April 2nd, is Fort Liberty at Fort Zumwalt South. So you want to get to that. I did that on purpose, and I should have known better. But that's going to be a big one.
It only makes sense that he did it that way, too.
Yeah, I did it that way. Because then we'll talk about the G.A.C. South. But those two teams, I think, can compete at a high level, are going to be at the top of that. I think everybody's looking up at those two with the depth they have. That's just my opinion.
Heck yeah. I can't wait.
I think it.
I wonder, what this leads to in the future for, obviously you can't think ahead, but 2025, does some changes happen for some of these conferences with things like enrollment that might change?
Yes, I agree.
Because North Point,
and there will be,
they're going to stay, in the north. And
I mean, where does Holt go? How much have they gone? I think it's very interesting how this shakes out, and we'll see what it does with the G.A.C. So you got the South.
So did you say who's going to be the?
I think it's between Liberty. I got Zumwalt South on top, but I think either one of those two teams can come out on top. But I did pick Zumwalt South to win it.
It's hard to beat that 1-2 punch of Hankey and,
it is,
and Carter
because, and then you look at those two teams. It's tough, man. The experience of that. We'll see if Liberty can stay healthy, and then you're running into two different classes and district-wise that way. Liberty's got that tough one with Howell being in that conference in that district. South,
and they're loaded again.
Is loaded. I think they're going to win that district and move again to there. I think they got a good chance of repeating and getting back to the Final Four. They've got the pitching. They got the depth. That's a good team. They really do. It's just.
I think it's the experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if those guys stay focused in that, I think they can make that run. It would take a really good team to beat them. It really will. But the G.A.C. South, we've got Hal North has got a new coach, brand new coach, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do as far as, where they set themselves. Mike Friedline is the new head coach after Coach Donahue for many years has finally retired. Many years.
He was coaching when I was playing against Hal North.
So you've got some guys there: Carter Stover, Kyle Mooring, Luke Hewlett, Carson Howard. Kid over at your place plays on that Prime USA Prime team.
Yep.
Good ball players. So they've got some guys over at Hal North.
Yeah, and there's some sophomores that I know that made the team that should impact that group. And Cam Burris is on there too, which is part of Dan's 16U team. And he's a young man that has developed. I mean, he was anywhere from 79 to 81, 82. And by the time that we got there, he was 84, 85. He's just a sophomore, so is Carson. And I think with those two together, because they both throw mid-80s, they just have to compete in the strike zone. Stop worrying about trying to strike guys out and keep them off balance, and they will do just fine. Because I think they're scrappy defensively. And we saw what the game last year that they had against Howell at Car Shield. And that game was really close until that collision happened, and then the wheels kind of fell off that game, which maybe was expected because Howell's got that kind of offense. But, again, they can stay within games, so they can be another team, even though they might be finishing bottom of the division, can finish 1-1, how they can compete against Troy or Timberland or Francis South Central. Can they take them guys to the wire? And I think they can be upset teams.
Okay, there you go.
I still think they're going to finish last in the conference.
Young.
Just
get some more experience.
How the culture is changing with the new coach. I do know that the kids love the new coach, though.
Yeah.
From having the conversation with some of those kids, they are energized with this new coach that's there.
That's cool. I love to hear that. I do. I think it'll be interesting to see how Hal North takes that next step, and we'll see what gives. Hal Central, Coach Beckman. I like Coach Beckman that way. He goes, I don't care who we're playing, we're going to give you our best. That's a direct quote from Coach Beckman.
He will do just that.
Exactly. And
stand very firm.
He's got Henthron coming back from last season. They're 1-2. Harris and Rubel are gone. But Ethan Collison, Nate Rush, Gabe Duncan, those guys are going to be guys that have to carry that load for that team.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe is again one of our guys. He plays for me on our upper class team, and so I've had Gabe for 3-4 years now, and I've been able to obviously been in the conference coaching, but I've seen what's in front of this young man. And so he's had to wait his turn.
Yeah.
He is now a senior. He sat the bench a large part of the season last year. Granted, he learned from one of the best catchers in the conference. But now it's his turn. So can he make the impact? Can he replace? It's hard to replace a guy like that they're replacing.
And I don't think you replace. You just got to go do what you do.
Do what you do. And don't worry about everything else. He's committed to go to Mo Valley. Feel free. And that's that was my encouragement to him, was just have as much fun, because this is it, right? This is your last year, high school year. Have fun. Trying to motivate him, because he puts a lot of pressure on himself.
Sure.
So I am interested in seeing how some of these kids that are now finally getting a chance at the everyday reps, how they're going to compete, because they haven't had this experience yet in high school.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, is go out and compete. Go out and compete. That's all you can do. Just go compete.
This is what I think is the difference between the G.A.C. South and everything else. I feel like it is really close to a college program, to where when you're freshmen and sophomores, you're dudes, if you're lucky enough to make the varsity team, you're guys, and we obviously know that happens. But a lot of times, some of these kids have to wait till their senior years to play varsity baseball, or get a chance to finally start.
Had a great conversation, of course, with Coach Zare from Timberland. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's just a nice man. I really like Coach Zare. He's got, they lost 1-2 as well. I think it's going to be interesting, but that kid Richie Swain is right there. He's got an electric arm. He's high 80s, breaking pitch.
High 90s. He's a mid 90s guy.
Is he there now?
Richie Swain?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the 90s. As a junior.
That's all I'd seen was, so he's up into the 90s.
Yeah,
now.
I think he hit like 94, 95 on a consistent number. I think he might have touched 96. I saw in one of the PBR events.
You got Carson Ramos, and I think he'll be behind the plate quite a bit now. He was playing third base last year, but I think he'll probably get a lot more behind the plate. NIU commit as well. You got Hayden Post. I think he's going to come in, play shortstop for them, from what Coach Zare said. And they've got some kids that'll be moving around. I think this team, I'd love to see where Dominic Horn sits in this. Brad Stump. Those are guys, mid-80s guys that are competing on the mound. What are they going to get out of those guys? That's what you're going to have to do behind Richie Swain.
Yeah, I apologize. I have my Homer hat on. I literally have my Homer hat on.
That's all right.
I'm a Timberland guy. My kids graduated there, coached from there. I get a chance to see these kids often, and I go there and watch practice, and I'm friends with Coach there too on the side, and then all the coaching staff too. So those guys, like when I watch Horn pitch, he's got some dog mentality. No, he doesn't throw upper 90s or upper 80s,
right.
Or mid 90s. But if he competes hard in the strike zone, he'll help. Same thing with Brad from the left side. The senior class in general was the first class that I coached at Timberland, so I got a little bit of attachment to them. The kids that made that group have all grown. And again, going back to, these kids didn't get a lot of playing time last year. Theismann didn't get a lot of opportunities last year. Horn didn't get a lot of opportunities. Now they're going to have them.
Yeah.
And so what did they learn last year from last year's group? And I do think this is a very different group. And I like the mentality that the group brings, more of a grinding team. The culture's a little bit different from within themselves. It's some senior leadership that we haven't had before, that it is very different communication-wise. So, I think players lead the team at this age. So I'm excited to see if that stays true. Right. From watching a few of the practices and how some of these young men are leading, because that's a team that I think can challenge the top of the division and not finish, that third place kind of area where they may be projected. A lot of things have to go right, but
I got them right now behind Troy. I think Troy is a little better. I think they're coming back now. Pitching wise, Troy's it'll be interesting to see. I think maybe I think those are flip flop there. 3 and 4 between Troy. I mean,
their series is going to matter probably where they finish 3 and 4,
and district seedings as well in that district. But Cam Casso coming back, Caleb Nouse, Jackson Ryder behind the plate. You've got some pitching there. It'll be interesting to see who steps up.
Troy's third baseman as a freshman last year. Is that who you're talking about, right? Troy right now?
I believe these are just the kids. These are 2024 guys. No, but they do have the freshman, I believe, Cameron Huddleston.
He's a senior pitcher.
Yes.
It was the kid's family that plays soccer.
I haven't even got that.
Oh, I thought you just brought up Troy, so that's where I was going.
Yeah,
but that's where I was going.
I hadn't talked about the freshman yet. This is what I mean, though. They've got Cameron. Avon Weaver is still back. They've got a lot of depth and a lot of talent. Plus the freshman that you're talking about. I'm going to get his name real quick because I'm sorry. I don't have it actually on here.
His uncle is one of the best St. Louis soccer players.
Is that right?
Oh, my Lord.
Dun, 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 dun.
I keep wanting to say tyranny, but it's not that. It starts with a T. I'm pretty sure.
I know, dude.
Well, I'm trying to talk through it. At the dead air, we had one dead air section. We could cut that out for the 30 seconds.
Carson Twellman.
Yep,
Carson Twellman, who had a very good year. He played third base for them last year.
I'm telling you, that game that he had against North Point, that night game, that was a very fun game to be a part of. I mean, dingers, we had doubles. They had two big arms going against each other. I enjoyed that. And their catcher.
Jackson Ryder. Yeah.
And there's a lot of good catchers in our state this last 2 years, and I don't want to sell any of the catching depth short. That, to me, was the best game manager. He was the most intense. I'm not sure he had the best arm. I think the best arm we saw was the young man from Webster that I think went to Missouri State, right?
Oh, yeah.
When he threw that kid out from Baldwin's backstop at third base, that was insane. And now, granted, he was trying to go first to third on the pass ball, but that kid's going – I think he's going D1 somewhere. That was the shortstop that led the game off with a homer, if you remember. But he –
Tyler Macon.
Yeah.
Is at Mizzou. That
kid in Ritter, Detroit's backstop, man, I've been trying to follow that young man just because he's got a work ethic. As a former catcher, you just love to be a part of.
And I think this is why the South, I mean, Timberland, you can't push them. Beckman's squad's going to compete. I think Hal North is going to compete. Those two teams, I think, are at the bottom toward that, but they're going to compete hard. You got Troy right there with a lot of talent. You got Timberland with talent. And it's going to, but then there, Zumwalt West, Coach Goff always got those kids competing. They lost their two top pitchers last year. This is where it is. So how do you bring that back? You've got Sissom.
Their offense and defense they're a problem. I don't know what their pitching staff's going to do. I mean, I don't think they got a low 90s guy anymore. I think they got a
Jeter Rupp. You got Jeter Rupp in there. It'll be interesting. I think he's going to be at that number one spot. He's not that dominant, but we don't know yet.
Well,
that's the thing.
He throws strikes though, and I think that's what made Deverman. I know that Deverman flirted with those numbers, in the 90s. But again, what made Deverman so competitive? His ability to throw strikes.
Right.
He did not get behind many counts. We've watched him pitch against some great teams last year. And I think in general, that's what Fort Zumwalt staff does because they are so good. I think they're one of the best talented teams on defense.
And last year, Jeter Rupp was 6-2 with a 2.50 ERA.
In that conference.
Yeah, he threw 33 innings, 33 2/3 behind Carson Clark and Kenton Deverman. So it's not like you've got, I believe.
I feel like 33 innings, is a good number for a guy for the gaining experience that he needed to be Zumwalt West number one this year.
Exactly.
And maybe he doesn't end up that way or whatever, but again, how does he manage the roster? Is Rupp going to go up against everybody's top guys, or is he going to pitch day two? How does Goff feel week to week? Because I know sometimes that
Tanner Sullivan too. Tanner Sullivan is in there as a pitcher. So you've got guys. They've got those two guys right there, two 2024s. It'll be interesting to see, but the offense, Brody Signorelli, a sophomore, Nolan Sissom. Now
Brody should be a junior.
Actually, he's a junior now. That's right. And I'm looking at last year.
Yeah.
And Sissom back as a sophomore. You got Alagna. This is a team that will compete. They always do. I think they're right there. You can't count West out until you beat them.
which this team I think can beat them. I think it's going to come down to who can.
But
handle the bunt.
I do think Troy and Timberland can beat West. We'll just they got to prove it.
Every single year, I believe that there's two teams that will have maybe 2 to 3 losses in the conference. Everybody else is going to be around 500.
Yeah.
That's what I think the league is for the G.A.C. South. Yeah. And I feel like Howell Central and Timberland's going to be 1-1. Troy's going to be 1-1. I think Francis Howell North might get lucky against the Howell Centrals if they take them for granted or take them lightly. But I think these guys can play some spoilers. I think Howell's season that they're going to have this year.
That's the elephant in the room.
I think it could be special for Howell. And that's hard to say with what Perkins has done over there, but they can do everything. They can run, they can throw, they can hit.
That's one of the most impressive teams I've seen on paper. It's just paper.
Of course, they got to be healthy.
Depth at every position. You just got guys, you got dudes, and the next man up can be a dude.
Yeah, how about the freshmen that have been playing for the last couple of years, that are now seniors?
I know, right?
And these or juniors, Leo Humbert and
Titus.
Them guys got 4 years of varsity experience.
Yeah,
and they've done
Humbert's
nothing.
A junior,
right? Yeah,
Sissel's a senior,
right?
So you have that 1-2 punch. These guys have experience. They've been in the Final Four the last 2 years. 3 years, Sissel,
and they're hungry.
The first year Sissel they got beat by in 2021. It was Zumwalt West, but the last 2 years, and they've lost to Liberty North, the back-to-back state champs. So it's not like this is a team that is primed to make that run and win a championship. Now that doesn't say it's going to, but it's just the reality of it.
The one thing that fools good hitting is good pitching.
Yep, but they have that as well. You got Shipley coming back, Bryant coming back. You got the 2 young guys, and then not to mention Skidmore. Brett Schneider, Curtis. Those are just
those are young guys.
Depth, yes.
And those are young players that are being involved in. And my business partner in Kevin, his son made the team this year as a catcher, DH kind of guy, and first couple of days of practice, he hit a couple baseballs out, and Mitch Weisenborn. So, he's a kid that didn't play last year. He focused on football, and he came out this year. They needed catching depth. And so he's like, what the heck, So he gets out there, makes the team, and sends a couple baseballs out. Now he's got an opportunity to showcase himself as a junior. So, again, just you have guys that aren't even maybe trying out that are that talented. And it's just – the monster that is Howell. I feel like they're the Patriots of the world, the Chiefs of this area. Is it just they reload? There's no retooling. There's no rebuilds. They just reload. And it's as a competing against them, you always wanted to beat them. But as an outsider looking in, it's like they do actually have something special going on. Whether or not kids move there or families move there for the level of play, that's a choice they make. Yeah. That's up to them, but they are producing.
Yes.
And every single year, it's like, who's beating Francis Howell? There's not I'm the first to admit, I hashtag beat Howell every time I get a chance.
Right?
But, they're the best. So, do you want to beat the worst team in the league, or you want to try to beat the best team in the league? So,
and that's what you got to try and do. If you're gonna make a run to, especially – I don't care if you're in the South, because most of those guys are all in the same district. And then Zumwalt South that one year, they're in you got Liberty coming up, out of the G.A.C. Central into that. That's going to be a tough team there. Zumwalt West, all these teams that are in that district, Timberland, you still got to work.
There's
the
upsets all
G.A.C.
over.
says that and moves you right into that district right there.
It's so brutal. I think they have the hardest district and run to state out of all of the teams. When they get when they get matched up into their quarterfinal games.
That group in the West is pretty tough too. District 8.
Yeah, but we don't see them until
I understand
state.
But, as far as
I'm thinking like
it's one of the toughest.
Oh
in
yeah,
the state.
top 2. They got to be.
Yes,
And I
agree.
I don't want to take anything away from the Springfield schools too, because there's some really nice programs down there. But I think that where Liberty North, Blue Springs, and all those schools, that these two compete. That's why we always see like one of these two schools in the state championship game, and we have for the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, whatever.
I think you're going to see it again.
I would expect it, but there's sectional games like I guess you don't have sectionals anymore. Quarterfinals. You're going against the monster.
Oh,
the
quarterfinal games are just brutally tough.
And it's like to get to the state, the Final Four is amazing to get to, because especially for like this district that Francis Howell and Timberland, all these guys are in, your quarterfinal game is hard. Some of these quarterfinals, like I think the quarterfinal game between South, I can't remember who they had in the quarterfinal. I don't know that was a big matchup. Or I might be thinking about the North. They faced like a Hazelwood Central or something like that or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They're not on the same planet.
I'll tell you right.
And you see
now.
it, and I'm like, oh, this ain't gonna go well for that team.
Well, and that's the thing. The quarterfinals last year were they were brutal.
At least in the Class 6.
Class 6, 2024 or 2023, Jackson. You had Jackson beat Lafayette. Francis Howell beat DeSmet 8-1, and that wasn't no chump.
Nope. I don't think
Blue Springs lost to Nixa 5-4. Rockhurst lost to Liberty North 2-0. That was the quarterfinal games. Jackson beat Lafayette 5-1. Howell beat DeSmet pretty good 8-1, and then a 5-4 game and a 2-0 game, and then Liberty North beat Nixa 2-1 in the semifinals. Howell 9-8. They had to come back to win that game against Jackson 9-8, and then it was 9-3. Liberty North kind of run away with that towards the end of that game, but I mean, and
That's
then a
brutal.
2-1. It was a 2-1 third place game. Jackson over Nixa. The Class 6 is brutal.
bad. It's brutal. That's all I can say. It's
man.
a gauntlet. I think it's some of the best baseball to watch because these kids know where they're going. And sometimes you need to get lucky, whatever, and you'll have this happen in some of the smaller Class 4, Class 5. You might have a dominant G.A.C. team run into a bum of a team from the suburban, whatever it's called anymore. I don't even know if that thing still exists.
Suburban St. Louis?
Yeah, whatever it is.
Oh, dude, now you're hurting the feelings.
Oh, that's okay. I played in it.
Rittner.
Yeah.
You're a Rittner guy.
Well, they got a young man that's got a nice little arm on him.
Because we did that last week.
Yeah, they got it. They got a nice little.
They got
arm
some
over
good. There's some good teams in the St. Louis Suburban League, man. That top conference, the gold conference, it's not top. I don't know if it's the gold. I got a yellow. It's Eureka, Lafayette.
Lafayette's
Parkway
the
South.
scariest team in there.
Parkway South's going to be brutal. Good. Lafayette's going to be very good. I don't know what they're.
We got one of them games
we're
coming
not
up.
going to do that.
But
it'll be fun.
We got them coming up.
Yes, we do.
On the schedule. I think it's
Parkway
Friday Night
South.
Light.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights. It'll be fun.
Well,
Out of Baldwin.
I was thinking Lafayette Timberland.
No. Oh,
You're doing it. You got that game on the schedule.
Lafayette and Timberland?
Yeah,
No.
don't you?
Mm-mm. No. I don't. Mm-mm. I know what it's on the schedule, but I want to talk about this. So we've gone a long time. Real quick, let's do this before. It's not on there. I'm telling you. Anyway, we talked about it, but we didn't do it.
Okay, all right.
Anyhow, the coming up next week, we got Willard or Camdenton at Willard. Go check this out. You can go read we've got some up on our website. You can read all about the GACs. You can go and click on the teams on our high school page on the website, youthbaseballmidwest.com. Go to the high school baseball page. The previews are there from what we just talked about. We've got some links on the website. You go down and scroll to the Southwest Missouri. There's links for the previews for these teams. Willard. You got Springfield Catholic, which we're gonna Nixa. There's these teams. We've got the previews in there. Go check those out. That's from the Ozone. They do a great job down there. Ozark Sports Central, previewing these teams because we're doing Willard. Camden's coming to their house, and then Springfield Catholic at Nixa next week to start off the season. And it's going to be some really good baseball. So we're excited about that.
I hope that we all tune in, as fans of the show, tune in just to experience what the high school baseball is around the state. And I think it's awesome that you're getting out of the area because everybody knows we cover the G.A.Cs for a reason. But to see what's happening in Kansas City, to see what's happening in Springfield is awesome.
Absolutely, and that's what it's about. And I really want people to understand and know that this is what this is. This is a real deal. This is fun.
Yeah.
Willard Camden game is going to be a dandy. We also got, and again, Springfield Catholic at Nixa, some good matchups there. So I'm looking forward to it. And
I've never seen Springfield Catholic, so I'm interested to see what they bring to the table. I know what Nixa can bring to the table because I try to follow the state tournament, from districts on, and so I know what they have.
Yeah.
So I have not seen Springfield Catholic.
We got a lot of good stuff coming up, folks. A lot of good stuff coming up. So I know we went a little long today, but wanted to get this in. Good stuff.
So what do we have? Recap is G.A.C. North Point? Or
North Point.
North Point.
Taking G.A.C. North. Central, Fort Zumwalt South. Hal Vikings.
And the monster that is blue and yellow.
Yeah, purple, yellow, whatever. I don't know. Is it blue?
Hal?
Blue and yellow. Okay.
Black and purple is Fort Zumwalt West.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's a little purplish on the Vikings.
Maybe navy. Are you colorblind?
No, it ain't. No, it ain't navy.
There is no purple.
It's a bluish purple.
Yeah. Of course it is. Anywho, Hal.
Maybe I'm colorblind.
Purplish, bluish, whatever. It's Hal. We don't care. It's just the Vikings.
They are the monster that is. That's we'll call them the purple.
Everybody's looking up. Everybody's looking up. So thanks for tuning in, folks. We do appreciate it. Remember, if you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate that. And hit the dinger next to it because that's what we do around here.
Yeah, nothing but dingers.
Exactly.
No doubles. I don't want to run.
You want to jog.
Yeah.
One flap down. Remember that?
The left turn, just hanging the arm down and running.
Oh, yeah.
That was like an Albert Bell move, wasn't it?
No, Jeffrey from the Giants. Oh, man, what was his last name? Anyhow.
Hammond?
I think so. One flat down.
I pulled that out of the hat.
That's where that goes. That's way back in the day, folks. Look that up.
That's 80s baseball, ain't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that'll get you notifications for all upcoming episodes such as this with great information such as one flap down. Oh, we love what we do around here. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes and hitters.
Catch barrels.
We'll see y'all next time.